the main theme of the teachings that White Feather brings through, and other spiritual teachers like him, is the fact that we are our own engineers of our progression. And when we become more and more evolved over lifetimes, he speaks in terms of levels of light, more than, actually a place physically that you go to. So he obviously maintains an astral body in order to connect with us at this level. But in terms of spiritual evolvement, obviously the body becomes redundant. You don't need a body. And spiritual enlightenment is actually that. It's levels of light, which to some extent operate through us all, but that can be honed and developed with teaching and with learning and with various lifetimes to repay back karmic debt, for instance.
Okay, so does White Feather see reincarnation as an optional thing, or is it something that we have to do, or can we go off to different planets and do different things?
Yeah, what he says on that, Ian, is that no one forces you to come back. But what he says is that the soul comes into a realization that it can't progress further in the spirit realms unless it outworks any karma that it has. And to do that, it comes back on the earth. And it may take a while for that realization to dawn. But he also said, regarding your point about going to other planets, he doesn't rule that out. He said it's a possibility, but he also says that if you create a karmic situation here on Earth, then you have to return to the place that you created it, not the specific location, but the Earth, to outwork it. You can't sort of sweep it under the carpet and think, oh, I'll go off to another planet now and experience. You have to finish up what you started. Really, you can't negate what you've commenced. You have to outwork it here, and when that's been done, then maybe it's possible that you can go to other worlds and other places in the universe to continue your progress.
Yeah, indeed. So what does he say on the topic of free will? It's one of them topics that's really confusing. On one hand, people believe in destiny, don't they? And then on the other hand, we seem to have free will, at least. But
yeah. It's a good point, and he's very, very clear on that, very specific. He says that we all have limited free will. The further we expand, the further we grow, the further we move forward spiritually, the greater the free will that we have. But he says that we have limited free will operating within a framework, if you like, of destiny that's laid out for each life. Just to open that up slightly, when we come into the Earth dimension, when we incarnate, we have a set of parameters that are known by the soul before we come here. We know the sex of the body. We know certain characteristics, certain weaknesses and strengths. We know the culture that we're coming into, and all these things. And we also have a life plan. But within that life plan, it's not fixed. It's not so set in stone that we can't change it to a certain extent. And that's where our free will comes in. And he states quite clearly that we can shorten our lives by our behavior, by our misbehavior, if you like, if we abuse our bodies, if we eat the wrong things, if we take substances, if we do the wrong things, then we're going to shorten our life. But overall, we can't extend it to any great extent beyond the date when we're due to return to the spirit world. So it's basically free will operating within a set of parameters that are known by the soul in advance of coming here. Does that make sense, do you think?
It does. It's like a blueprint, isn't it, really, I guess? Like, if you're not meant to be a millionaire, you won't be a millionaire. But I've known people, and there's a story of a guy who really wanted to be a millionaire, and he got £1 million, but he lost it soon afterwards.
Yeah.
So he was never really meant to be a millionaire.
That's right. That's right.
Life,
I mean, I very often do the lottery, Ian, and I think to myself, I'm not going to win this.
That's right.
I know.
You haven't yet.
And I haven't yet.
But you're helping someone else win that money, aren't you? By putting the money in the kitty.
Yeah, we're not meant to be millionaires. I'd love to be, but I'm not meant to be. I've got, we've got other work to do.
It is still confusing because if I have similar beliefs to you. I believe we do have this kind of free will within a framework. Obviously there are people that do horrible things to people, and you think, but when is that horrible thing a planned thing, or when is that thing actually not the planned thing? Do you know what I mean? It's those kind of arguments.
That's another good point here. Let me answer that, because again, White Feather, from memory and from reading back the books that we've actually put together, I know he's been asked that question a number of times, and the question that's very often asked is a specific one. What about a plane crash where a number of people die in a plane crash? First of all, he says there's no such thing as accidents, even though we perceive them as accidental from our viewpoint. He always says that the law operates to perfection. And as regarding all those people that pass in that instance, he says, well, if they weren't meant to be there, their energies would have taken them to a different place. They wouldn't be there. They would have not caught the flight, or they wouldn't have gone on the flight in the first place. Something would have happened. They would have made a different choice. So their energies are putting them in that position at that time. And on the surface, that might sound a little bit sort of, difficult to believe. But if you think deeply into it, you realize you can trace back all of the threads, all of the things that happen to put you in a particular place at a particular time. And nothing can ever be by chance or accident. Everything is traceable back to decisions that were made at the time, maybe going back years, that have put you into that position, that place at that moment in time.
Well, I think when you look at humans, though, I often think that we're so predictable. In our own thinking, we can get into loops with certain thinkings, and I think that generally people are very much predictable, with our behaviour and what we do.
Yeah.
So it does make me wonder how much free will we actually do. I mean, I've got free will now just to jump up and down and take my headphones off, and I wouldn't have done that. But then I think, but there might be a synchronistic path that already exists where I would have done that anyway.
Yeah. The other thing is as well, when we regard free will, most people would not choose to have a disability or an illness or a hard time in life. I mean, as human beings, we wouldn't choose to do that. And yet what we have to consider here is the bigger picture. If we don't choose that, but that's on our pathway, it's what we will actually learn from going through those difficult experiences in the greater scheme of things. And I think it's not going, we're not saying here that, if you believe this and you read books and listen to spiritual teachers, you're going to have a wonderful life where nothing ever goes wrong. Because in the bigger picture, in the eyes of spirit, what we might consider as something going wrong or something not quite so good is actually a bigger teacher and a greater opportunity for learning than if it hadn't have happened. I can speak from experience in that regard, having spent a lot of my childhood in hospital. And actually, when I look back now, although it was a horrible time, there are times when the most profound movement in my understanding has been perhaps in one of the most difficult and most painful parts of my life. And when I look at it now, I actually am so grateful for that experience, because I truly believe that it's perhaps made me more compassionate and helped me to understand the needs of other people in the same situation, and much more ready, if you like, to go and speak to people. And you can't make everything okay. And Spirit would say that we choose to experience the hardships and there has to be that counterbalance between good and